Hi, you guys. Hey, listen, when you watch the problems that are going on globally, and when they talk about climate change, they don't so much call it global warming anymore. They call it climate change. And I don't think that the climate is changing. I think the world goes through cycles that are normal. Because if you notice, and you can put this to the test yourself, if you notice that any time to sell their narrative that it's fossil fuels causing the earth to get worse with climate and causing change that is disrupting human life, they will always take you to the regions of the world that have always been known for disasters. Do you ever notice that? Do you ever really notice that? For instance, the horrific flooding in China. Well, you want to know something? The Chinese people live in the valleys of those steep mountains. The mountains in China are very, very steep. So when you get water running off the mountains, guess what's going to happen down at the lowest point? It's going to flood. China has always had floods in its history, always. So it's nothing new. But if flooding gets worse, then who's to say it hasn't happened before? And some of these cycles could take 1,000 years before they rear their head again. But they'll always take you, they will always show you parts of the world that have always been known for disaster, like India. They will say, well, India is flooding really, really bad. Well, India has always had disasters. Is that anything new? No. Disasters in China and all throughout Asia with typhoons and flooding. Is it anything new? No. Earthquakes. Is it anything new? No. When there's a major earthquake, they take you to the region of the world where it is normal for it to happen. They don't ever take you somewhere new where it never happens and then say, oh, look how the world is changing. It's always the same old hot spots. You know, it's crazy that people buy into this when they show you the same old thing. You know, like this drought that's going on out west and into part of the Midwest and the upper plains. And it's supposedly unprecedented. Well, you know what? It's always been hot and dry out there. Most of the West is a desert. Is it any surprise that there is a lack of water in the desert? Come on, people. Because when you get to that past east, to that center line that divides the country from east to west, does anybody in the Northeast or on the Eastern seaboard say, it's getting hotter? It's so hot, we can't stand it. No. You know what, you guys? Look, you can take my word for it or not. I've lived here in Western New York for 50 years. If that doesn't say something for as far as what I'm about to tell you, then I don't know what to tell you. If a half a century isn't enough proof to you that this is not happening like they say it is, then I don't know what to tell you, because here is our this week's forecast. Here it is right here. These temperatures you're looking at are normal. Normal. Every single summer, this is what our temps are. The hottest day we ever get is 95. That's it. 95. And it will only last for 3 days. And that happens every year. It happened last year, the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that. And it will happen again next year. Our temps are normal. Never does our meteorologist ever come on Channel 4 News at 5 o'clock and say, when he gives a weather report, we are way above normal. We are getting way too hot. We're getting very, very dry. Never. The temps are always, always within normal ranges. So isn't it funny that I too live in a country, the same country and on the same planet that everybody says is getting hotter and worse, and that climate is getting worse, and yet only here in Western New York our climate stays the same. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny that nothing changes here? We get the same amount of rain that we've always gotten, and that flooding that I've showed you guys before that happened last week, that area has flooded before. That's nothing new. It has flooded before. It was worse this time, but it has flooded before. And the same areas that will flood here are only the same areas that will flood. It doesn't ever expand out and flood somewhere new. So everything that happens here is normal. Normal. Absolutely 100% normal. So when they talk about climate change, they show you only the regions of the world where things are worsening. Well, it's hot in the desert, and there are cycles where the desert will get hotter. And then there's certain times where the desert will be cooler than normal. It's nothing new, you guys. They are taking these extremes and running with it and trying to say that it's changing. No, it's not. This earth has been around for millions of years, you guys. Nature knows how to take care of itself. It knows what it's doing, and it is controlled by God. God is controlling it. Look at this clip right here from PBS and what she says.
It's the western states in particular that are taking the hardest hit. It's the western states in particular that are taking the hardest hit.
You see how she says only in the West? It's only in the West. That's because it's always been only in the West. When do they ever talk about a severe drought all up and down the East Coast? The Carolinas, Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Maine, New Hampshire. When do you ever hear anything abnormal in weather going on in those states? You don't, because it's normal weather. The things that are going on in other countries like India and China and Russia and Germany and things like this with floods, those places get floods. So they talk about all this stuff, you guys, like it's new and it's different. Then if it's so new and different, then how come whenever you talk to anybody that have lived all their lives in their state, and they say, no, the summer's been the same it's always been. The winter months are the same as it's always been. Our winters have been the same they've always been. Always. How many years, you guys, have I been plowing and you've been watching my videos and it's the same? I move the same amount of snow, and it's never on a biblical level where like the snow is like at the roof of the garage where the truck is kept. It's not. The most I push with that truck is probably a foot deep. And because I push the snow so much in the same spot, it makes the banks between 6 and 8 feet. But that's because I'm piling it there, not nature. Nothing changes, you guys. They only pick the areas of the world that have always had trouble with climate and weather. It's always done these things in cycles. And they keep going back to these same regions. They will not talk about Florida, anything going on in Florida, unless a hurricane comes, which is normal for Florida. And then when it gets hit and devastated with a hurricane, then they'll say it's climate change. No. Florida has been getting hit with hurricanes for thousands of years, probably, as well as the Gulf states. It's normal. You know, people made a video yesterday about it snowing in South Africa. Well, it's wintertime in Africa. And when I researched it, come to find out, it is normal for it to snow in Africa, in South Africa. And I didn't even know that. But because someone posted a video of just snowflakes lasting for about 10 minutes of snow falling, they said, oh my God, it's climate change. And then I researched it, and you can follow going back years that it has snowed in South Africa before. You guys, they're picking and choosing these topics to push something that isn't even real. These extremes are normal and they happen. The world goes through changes, just like people go through changes. The landscape goes through changes. The woods are always changing. Trees die and new ones grow. And so the way the woods are, it's always changing. And the earth does the same thing. It's just when it's on an extreme level, because it's that time for the earth to go through those extreme levels, these cycles that you can go back and look at in history, and they say it's getting worse. And let's say if it was getting worse, then if it's only getting worse out west, then don't worry about it. Move east, because things around here are normal. It's only abnormal out west because it's a desert. And people are greedy and abusing the water out there. And it's no wonder they're sucking the levels down to what they are. Lake Mead wouldn't be anywhere near as low as it is now if people weren't abusing the water, because they're living in an area they shouldn't be living in. You're not supposed to farm the desert. You're not supposed to plant grass in the desert. I don't believe any of this crap, you guys, because if the whole world is changing and the temperatures are rising, so many degrees, every 10 years or whatever it is, then how come our temps around here in Western New York are always the same? You explain that to me then. If the world is getting hotter, why are our temps and our forecasts the same year after year after year? Our rainfall is the same. This year, we got it all at once, but it's still the same amount of water. No more, no less. The snowfall is the same every year. The lakes freeze every year at the time that they are supposed to freeze. Every year. The coldest month in the East is January, and that's what it is every year. What the hell's changing? It's only the places that are known to change and have disaster. That's what they're blaming it on. It's bullshit, you guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.